The Fallout TV series has just been released, and it definitely took me by surprise with how good it was. And I feel like the quality was genuinely shown in this series from the very first moment that picture and sound hit my eyes and ears. With a 7-minute opening section that marked the end of the world as it was once known, this scene was so well crafted, and after finishing the show it was one that really stuck in my mind and I just couldn't quite shake. So I thought it was worth breaking down the opening section and discussing exactly why I feel it was perfect. So let's get into it. Here is why the opening scene in the Fallout TV series is perfect. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. One thing that I thought was instantly great about this opening scene was the song that featured throughout it. As we entered the show, from the black screen, the song Orange Colored Sky by Nat King Cole was playing, which when looking back on it after the scene concluded, I realized that it was the perfect choice considering that the sky was illuminating in an orange glow due to the nuclear bomb that dropped on the city. Not only that, lyrics such as "I was walking along, minding my business, when out of an orange colored sky, flash, bam, alakazam" were featured and described the ending of the scene perfectly. Whilst the song was originally written to describe the feeling of falling in love, in this instance the lyrics took on a completely different meaning and perfectly described the events that we saw occurring right at the end of the scene. The friction and opposite meaning behind the lyrics, which perfectly described love and war, wasn't the only time that something like this occurred. For example, this scene was taking place during a time of celebrations, a birthday party. But at the same time, it concluded with panic and what would have been a death day for many. So the friction-filled polar opposites were present in multiple different ways. This was a great creative choice to make because it lured us into a false sense of security in a number of different ways. Whether that be the environment, emotions, or audible experience, it was a great way for this scene to kick off. I also loved the fact that although this was the beginning of the show, it was titled as The End. This is because it was essentially the end of the world as they knew it, pre the bombs being dropped. Don't get me wrong, it's not that creative, but it was a detail that I did quite like and saw the humour in. Going back to that feeling of uneasiness, but it almost being masked over, there were multiple times that we felt that feeling in these 7 short minutes. For example, the radio station mentioning how the president was nowhere to be seen, the radio also talking about Anchorage, Alaska, the panic of the weatherman saying how he didn't see the point in doing the weather if there wasn't going to be a world in a week's time, and also the mother just trying to push everything to the side and brushing over it. These small moments gave us an insight into what was happening in the world outside of the 4 walls of the house, a place that we weren't familiar with at all. All we knew at this point was the birthday party, and our only insight of danger was shown to us through the radio and TV, and that unsettling environment really did come across due to that, even though they were just small moments that were drip-fed to us. Outside of the threat of the bomb being dropped, we were introduced to Coop and Janie. Coop obviously went on to be the ghoul that we followed throughout the entirety of the show. However, we didn't learn that much at all about him at this point, but it was only after watching the show that certain lines in this scene started to make sense and held a lot of weight to them upon the rewatch. For example, we saw that he was working at children's birthday parties and the parents of the children were confused as to why that was. After going through the entirety of the show, we know that it's because he was losing work due to him being associated with Vault-Tec, and the studios didn't want to be aligned with them or him because he was working with them. This showed that although we saw him losing work as time went on throughout the show, by the time the bombs dropped, he wasn't the famous actor like he once was. He was now a has-been, and was being forced to do parties in order to make a living, showing how Vault-Tec impacted him in a professional sense, as well as in a personal sense with everything that went on with his wife Barb. Plus, when he was asked to do the thumbs up in the photo, he refused to do so because of the situation that was present at the time. During episode 3 of the show, we saw that he did a photo shoot in Vault-Tec's radiation-resistant outfit that people inside of the vaults wear, ultimately coining that thumbs up pose. But later on, 219 years later, he fired up at the billboard in which the character based on him was on, so it showed that there was a deep resentment towards Vault-Tec in the future that lied within him. And that resentment started in the present day when he started learning about the truth of Vault-Tec and the fact that they were going to be the individuals that dropped the bombs on the city. The end of the world is a product after all, and that was something that he just didn't agree with. The fact that the parents said to him, "That's what you're known for," when he said he didn't want to put his thumbs up was a bit of a dig towards him too, showing that despite his successful acting career, the thing that he was known for and his legacy was being an advocate for Vault-Tec, the very company that he now despised. The company that showed his wife to be an evil individual, the company that took his career away, and the company that destroyed his life. It all made sense after watching the show because we saw his mind going from being willing to work with Vault-Tec to seeing them be the company that were prepared to kill large parts of the population in order to make money and play God with people's lives. And inside of Coop's head in this short 7-minute scene, all of that was contained there. We just didn't know it yet. When it came to the explosion actually occurring, I thought this was so well executed. The fact that the whole scene went in slow motion and was in complete silence was just perfect. We didn't see the bomb drop from the perspective of in front of our eyes or the character's eyes, but we saw it dropping in a reflection in the window, which made it all the more haunting. We were focused on the reaction of Janie, and it was that of fear, nervousness, and not knowing what to do. We just saw smoke billowing up into the sky to the height of skyscrapers, and then that orange glow that Nat King Cole sang about earlier on took over the sky. Death was coming, and the end, which was mentioned on screen at the start, was now there. I also loved the way that the force of the bomb was rapidly approaching the house, and the energy that it emitted shattered all of the windows that were there. There was tension created in seeing it approach and not truly knowing what the effect of it would be when it arrived. I'd pair this scene in a similar vein to the one that occurred in the miniseries Chernobyl, where the explosion happened. I thought that one was really well executed too. Seeing it occur from the inside of an apartment window, and then, just like in this, the energy forcing its way through the property. It's a really effective way of doing it, because we lose the sound of it, so the loss of that sense throws off the scale of the explosion. After the explosion, the fact that we saw the two people that were friends only moments earlier showing their true colors, and one of them not letting the other into the bunker that they created, saying that there was no room, and then proceeding to hit them, was a way of almost showing us that it didn't take long for the mindset of civilization that we saw 219 years later to be formed. It took all of a few moments after the explosion for an every man for themselves and a lawless land where violence became a thing to be formed. With Coop and Janie riding off, with the music reaching a crescendo as the largest explosion took place before the 7-minute scene concluded, it was the perfect way to round off the disaster and show us how the world ended up in the position that it did 219 years later in the future when we cut there only a few seconds later. This opening scene, whether it's being watched for the first time, it provides a haunting backdrop and understanding to what the entire show is going to be about. But then again, also at the same time, upon a rewatch, there are character traits that you notice only after watching the show, and ultimately allows this scene to carry much more weight to it. It was the perfect way to open this show, and it had me hooked from the very first note of that Nat King Cole song. So, there you have it. Why the opening scene in the Fallout TV series is perfect. If you want to see a full breakdown on the Fallout TV series, then click on the card in the top corner, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find the video too. Within that video I also provided a review of the series, so feel free to seek it out. Do you agree with the opening scene being perfect? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.